scramble. Ordine di scramble per 2 whisky kilo. Salita gate 20 angeli. Contattare Pioppo su Oscar 84. Alternato Papa 17. Ordine di scramble 15:40 Zulu. Trasmette Charlie Mike.
Within the Air Force flight wings, events like this took place again and again. 3 generations of fighter pilots are recognized for the immense role they played. With the piercing sound of a siren, the story of an interception mission begins. And this is how more than 40 years of history began. The history of the Air Force F-104. How the 104 became part of the Air Force flight wings, selected from equally prestigious candidates, is another story. In the early 1960s, a plane had to be chosen that would form the backbone of Italy's air defense. It was a tough decision.
Una bella mattina arriva in ufficio il generale.
One morning, General Mocci came to my office and said, "Berto, we've made the decision. If you read the morning paper, there's an article that says the Air Force has chosen the F-104G in cooperation with the Germans, Belgians, and Dutch." And I answered, "Well, the problem is solved, Commander. Good luck."
The newcomer aircraft already had a good record and an appropriate name, Starfighter. But the Air Wings community soon gave it the nickname of Hatpin because of its long, smooth shape. Its pure aerodynamic lines actually make it look like a rocket or an amiable lit cigar when the afterburner lights the jet. The choice turned out to be a good one, and naturally, the pilots were the first to realize it.
When I left for the States to attend the F-104 qualifying course, the acting Deputy Chief of Staff, General Valentini, called to say, "Berto, now you're going to the States. After you've flown the F-104, send me a note about your feelings." After my first flight, I sent him a postcard. "Dear Commander, the F-104 seems like a really exceptional machine. There is one thing lacking, however. It doesn't give you time to think."
Training was the only possible solution. At first, Italian pilots were trained in Germany, but soon the 20th Squadron, based in Grosseto, with the 2-seat version, began the transition to the trainer variant. The squadron maintained this challenge up until the last pilot was trained, and the whole time the 104 was in the front line. In fact, the DF-104 led to a change in the flight training courses to set the ab initio jet system, as it was called. The 20th was also equipped with a flight simulator, quite a prodigious machine for that time, and certainly an exceptional aid for students and instructors.
The newly licensed pilots have better results than the older ones. One of the first indications is the difficulty of accelerating in the minimum possible time to bring the aircraft up to the operational velocity.
This new aircraft created a revolution within the Air Force and brought deep changes in all Air Force operational, technical and logistic sectors. Throughout the years, the aircraft itself improved. With time and technology, many features were implemented to meet the goals of the armed force. It was adapted to fulfill various roles, making the best use of its own unique qualities. Above all, it acted as an interceptor, the main role for which it was chosen and the one it could still perform today.
I was an interceptor pilot of the 21st Squadron based in Istrana when I left to attend the F-104 qualification. At Yerba Base, I noticed a contrail that was passing over the field at an altitude of about 37 to 38,000 feet, and the instructor told me to take off for a ride demonstration. We took off, and at that point I had to pull up the landing gear in a hurry, otherwise it couldn't be done. And he told me to look at the trail and pull up. While staring at the trail, I got above it in a minute and a half. There you have it. An interceptor pilot's dream had come true.
Operations within the wings went on day and night, and the 104 began to get the approval of the pilots. The aircraft was gratifying to fly with and didn't demand the impossible, but it did require maximum commitment.
An F-104 pilot doesn't have to be a Superman nor a super pilot, but he ought to have one very specific characteristic: concentration. To fly the F-104, you have to be single-minded and totally concentrated. You have to realize you're aboard an F-104. You have to know it well and think only of that.
The pilot's knowledge of the plane was an absolute necessity. Gradually, as flight hours increased, pilots within the wings built up their individual and collective experience. You have to realize that there's no difference between the first 104 pilot 40 years ago and the pilot of today. There's no difference in the approach to the aircraft, nor in the attitude towards it, because in all these years the 104 has never lost the respect it's due, and has never become obsolete. Throughout these years, the thrill of flying a 104 is still the same.
Taking off in an F-104 is an unforgettable experience, not because of the number of times you've done it, but because of the power of the engine, the acceleration, the exuberant thrust. The thrill of the experience is something you never lose, especially with the light configurations like the air defense, when the plane is not overloaded with fuel or other cargo to weigh it down, and you have greater acceleration. The insertion of the afterburner really adds thrust. In slang we say, a kick in the arse.
During its record-setting career, the Starfighter has been used by 10 Air Force wings and 15 squadrons in different roles. As an air defense interceptor, attack striker, and for reconnaissance, and in various versions, the original F-104G, the S-1, the ASA, and the ASA-M, in the ongoing quest to expand the aircraft's utmost capabilities. The Air Force 104's history can be considered a real epic, not merely because of its endurance, but also because of its importance. The 104 reconnaissance version was flown by the 3rd Wing. The aircraft was equipped with a special pod that held infrared cameras. During the recent Gulf War, it was operational from an airbase stationed in Turkey. For over 20 years, the 104 was the plane of the modern age. From the time it first joined the flight line, it was a symbol of renewal. Ideas, plans, doctrines, and organization were updated. The revolution spread inside the technical and logistic areas as well. Full scheduled maintenance and turnarounds were accomplished by no less than 12 separate specialists. A special training school was established just for them, and English began to be heard inside the hangars. The specialists' identity and role were highly respected, even more so nowadays as they became highly skilled and more professional.
Those who work around the F-104 feel a degree of superiority. And this happened also to me when I came from a wing equipped with another type of aircraft. The 104, with its noise, its bisonic velocity, and its complex maintenance at both primary and secondary technical levels, gives the specialist the extraordinary satisfaction that maybe other types of aircraft don't.
The classic relationship between pilot and plane expands and widens. Today we call this teamwork, and the goal is to obtain maximum efficiency of the system, the objective being to achieve the maximum possible number of available flight hours. The entire air defense organization relies on this, and the 104, in its role as pure interceptor, is the diamond point.
It's an aircraft that was made for this role, and its performance still makes it useful and capable in peacetime for searching and reaching other aircraft, identifying it. Not alone, however. Even though it has onboard radar, it couldn't accomplish this task without the absolute involvement and skill of the whole air defense chain, especially air defense radar. Without this chain, the 104 would fly blind and be unable to do its job.
Sometimes, during actual interceptions, with a zoom following a dizzying ascent in a few seconds, the 104 had close encounters with a nearby intruder detected by the Air Defense's ground or air radar surveillance chain integrated into the NATO system. Whether those were accidental border intrusions or unauthorized flights, identification was made at the end of the mission, where the identity and the intentions of the unknown party had become known. At other times, during normal exercises, the in-flight encounter was with a friend or allied crew. In-flight activity increased drastically as years went by. Maintenance operations have now become daily occurrences without falling into the distraction of routine. Before each flight, the maintenance crew repeats standard signals to the pilot in a highly comprehensive dialogue. They've perfectly mastered a rich, articulate language where even the use of hands and fingers is involved.
A unique characteristic among flight operations around the F-104 is the pilots' and crew chiefs' hand movements during the so-called five-finger procedure. They are able to check aircraft surfaces like flight controls, air brakes, flaps, inlet doors, and auxiliary air intake by a simple wink of an eye between them.
In questo caso è fondamentale.
In the early 1980s, the great experience gained from flying the F-104s provided the Air Force with the necessary skills to start a new modernization program based on the Tornado.
Abbiamo cominciato piano piano.
Little by little, we began to develop an international mentality, both as pilots and as specialists. Squadron exchange began to go well. Exchanges between pilots, specialists, and aircraft from other squadrons. The European air forces started to get to know each other. We were the forerunners of a new Europe and a new NATO. I sincerely believe this change was good for us, and that it was a necessary milestone for the proper development in military aeronautics that followed.
Decades in many wing activities were devoted to the 104. It was natural that the hat pin became the fulcrum of many events. Unusual events, like the speed race in the early 80s. An unusual 1,000-meter runway challenge between the 104 and 3 Formula One racing cars. For the record, the 104 only managed to beat its adversaries when the fog disappeared. It was possible to fill the aircraft with only enough fuel to take off and land on the same base. During special anniversaries or events, its fuselage was painted with creative designs and brilliant colors, like this. We're not able to show them all, but some are worth remembering for their fantastic imagery and color combinations. This one in particular will probably stand out in the 104's history. The red livery, white wings and fins with small finishing touches in black. It belongs to the 10th Squadron of the 9th Wing, the one where the 104 would end its operational activity inside the Air Force and the world. The hat pin will be remembered for a long time with nostalgia and love. Feelings frequently and broadly shared among 104 pilots. Spontaneous feelings after thousands of 104 flying hours.
The 104 is a unique airplane, and I'm sure I speak for all F-104 pilots when I say that we can put all other planes to one side, and the 104 on the other as being unique.
If we wish to give a short definition of the 104, summing it up would certainly be difficult, and we might easily stray from the point.
How can we describe the F-104? First of all, it's the most beautiful plane in the world. It's fascinating, unique, and may be compared to a woman. Very demanding to manage.
There are some, however, who have other feelings about the 104. The latest young pilots who've had the chance to perform an F-104 lineup a considered privilege they know only too well.
The feelings a young pilot gets from the F-104 are surely pride and awe in the presence of a machine that many remember with nostalgia, and others would love to fly, but will probably never have the chance.
Gone forever are the times when the test wing, tasked to make the 104 presentation, demonstrated the plane's superb performance with marvelous acrobatics, a compendium of elegance and power. Large formations of F-104s, with their perfect geometry, were stunning in numbers and precision. They were the pride of every wing. During official ceremonies, they could demonstrate the excellent training of the pilots and their ability to fly in formation. The flight controls required physical effort, constant attention, and sensitivity to the slightest movement. Man and machine had to be in perfect harmony, in sync. The satisfaction of such flights is still alive, along with memories of the difficult tasks. While listening to these stories, faces and names of unforgettable men and colleagues return. Those whose supreme sacrifice will always be linked to the history of the 104 and the Air Force. The last taxi to the runway for takeoff. F-104s of the 9th, 10th, 18th and 20th Squadrons. Whilst looking at this scene, who could imagine that the career of those aircraft was about to end forever? And how many other planes have aged as well as the 104? Its lines are still modern, its elegance unaltered, and the pride with which it takes to the air is the same as it was many years ago. There's no more fitting tribute to this extraordinary participant in the long history of Italian military flight than a formation pass with the colors of the Italian flag. A symbol of gratitude and affection, this is the Air Force's final farewell.